Welcome to Cinema Chop Shop. Watch, chop, retrofit.
What's a cat's favorite TV show? What? Claw and Order.
Oh, TV show. I was trying to think of a channel.
Channel?
Yeah, I was thinking like Now TV or... That's true.
But this isn't a dad joke podcast.
Oh, we're recording now. Yes, I love it.
Welcome to Cinema Chop Shop. This is a bi-weekly movie podcast when we're on fire.
Somewhat.
We're going to be talking about movies, and we're excited to have you joining us today. And I also want to say I'm glad to have a couple of guests joining us today. I'm your Brewboss Shawn, and I'm joined with Todd.
That's correct.
Welcome,
That's
Todd.
Right. Thank you.
Glad you're back. We missed you last episode.
Yeah, sounded like a fun one, but glad to be here again. Ready to impart some knowledge today.
And we're thrilled to welcome back to the show the Podfather himself, Travisito.
Oh, man, I saw that you were listening to the radio on the way in, and it was Adele's Rolling in the Deep, and you were doing like a little dance with your dog in the kitchen. You didn't see me, but I saw you. And I just want to say, man, you do your thing.
No, you didn't see that. You did not see that. We're going to lead off the show with the rare RIP. We haven't done these in a while, but I felt this one was kind of significant. This is a rest in peace, rest in power to Paul Reubens,
Oh, yes.
better known as Pee Wee Herman. We lost him to a battle with cancer. Fuck cancer.
Yep.
Fuck cancer.
Poor guy was privately battling this, and it just really hit me hard that he was gone.
Yeah.
It's one of those...
This show came out, and Travis is around the same age as me, so 5, 6, so like I was right in from the beginning. It was my favorite show. I, to this day, still have the talking Pee-wee doll. Where you
Really?
pull it and it
from
talks.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yep. And the cherry as well, the big cherry. I also have the lesser known Playhouse playset. So it's like this one. Remember those things that you could that had the buttons on them, and you would unbutton it, and it was like a big set of something.
Yeah.
Almost like a box that unfolds.
Like a
into
diorama.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I had the Pee-wee's Playhouse version of that, including the action
That's
figure.
incredible.
So I've still got some of that to this day. It was actually what I just described was set up in my house for a long time. It's in storage now, but anyway.
And by storage, you mean eBay.
I probably should put it on eBay. I think those things are pretty valuable now. But
Pee-wee made a
yeah,
big impact on me. I watched his special on HBO when it came out in like 1980.
Yeah.
That was a great show. And then my parents introduced me to David Letterman because Paul Reubens was on the show a lot. And it was really neat seeing a lot of those clips people were posting on social media.
Well, the contrast between Pee-wee's over the top and Letterman's buttoned up.
And then the outpouring of support, the Alamo posted on their social media account and said that since 1985, not a day goes by where someone doesn't ask to see the basement. And they, give it all credit to Pee Wee Herman for that. The
actual Alamo.
The Alamo.
I thought you meant Alamo Drafthouse, the movie
the
theater.
Alamo.
Actually, I thought you meant the Alamo, and then I was like, oh, he's talking about the movie theater.
No, not the real Alamo.
Yeah,
they posted about it.
That just means that I have to remember the Alamo.
Yeah, you should. And then, of course, there was the scene, the roadside attraction with the giant dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They repainted the big T-Rex with a gray tuxedo.
Nice.
Wow,
and
nice.
so I'm like, man, that's...
What a unequivocal cultural icon.
Yeah.
There's no other fucking Pee Wee Herman. There's no knockoffs.
And that character was so brilliant because he could appeal to an adult audience, as Pee-wee's Big Adventure certainly does. But then he could also adapt that character to Pee-wee's Playhouse, which obviously was directed more towards kids, and it was just a very brilliant, versatile character.
So a big rest in peace, rest in power to Paul Reubens. We're going to miss his contributions. Just a funny guy.
Couple trivia questions.
Okay, hit us.
So what comedy troupe did Pee-wee start out in?
The Groundlings.
The Groundlings. What feature film was the first appearance of Pee-wee's Playhouse?
Pee-wee's Playhouse?
I'm sorry, of Pee Wee Herman.
Was it the Cheech and Chong movie?
Which one?
I can't remember which movie it was, but I remember it was Cheech and Chong.
It was their next movie.
Cheech and Chong's next movie. Okay.
And finally, here's a bone. I'm throwing it to the audience. Who played Cowboy Curtis?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Incorrect. Larry Fishburne before 1993.
I've got a trivia one for you. Paul Rubens' father was a founding member of what country's Air Force?
Oh, okay. Give me just a second.
Great Britain.
Is it Poland?
No, Israel.
Israel. Okay, it was like Ruben. What was his actual original name?
I think the last name was Rubens. I don't think it was like
No,
Rubenstein.
actually, I think it was Rubenstein. Actually,
It was Rubenstein.
Rubenstein.
Okay. So anyway, so that's our little tribute to Paul Rubens.
Man, I should have got that.
It's okay.
I was thinking Rubinsky.
This week's episode, we've been teasing it for a while. It's our fan theories episode, our crazy, outlandish movie fan theories episode.
I got one.
I've got 3.
Epstein did 9/11.
Oh God!
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
We've deep dived some news groups and some chat rooms to discern some of the craziest fan theories that we could find for popular films, so we could warp your brains and make you see the films in a new light.
I like it.
Who wants to go first?
I think we're starting with the guest, Todd.
Sure.
The main,
I'll go ahead.
Main guy here.
Okay, I'm starting off with 1985's Back to the Future.
Yes.
The fan theory surrounding this, the Doc Brown character in the movie is kind of a scatterbrained inventor, but he mostly, for the most part, seems kind of, optimistic, you would say. However, there is a theory...
He seems to be mostly good-natured.
Correct.
He's not malignant.
Correct.
Or malicious, I should say.
Exactly. This theory that I stumbled across suggests that Doc Brown was, in fact, suicidal
Yes.
in the film.
Oh.
And there's actually some pretty good pieces of evidence for
That
this.
is dark.
The top piece of evidence for this is at the beginning of the film, when the DeLorean initially travels back into time, Doc Brown stands directly in the path of the car as it goes towards him.
Just assuming that when it gets
Assuming that it will work, and
88.6 miles
up
per
until
hour.
right, and up until this point, though, he has not he has not had an successful attempt at doing this yet.
Or has he, and we just haven't seen it because he went back and changed it?
Possibly, but the impression we're given was that this is the maiden voyage, or the first time that he's really trying it out, and that's why he wants Marty there, because he's called Marty out to help record it. Marty's got a camera, and he's supposed to record this. So the theory goes, starting with this scene, that Doc Brown stands directly in the path of the car, which, if his theory is correct, will disappear once it reaches 88 miles per hour and go back into time. But the theory where the suicidal aspect comes in is, number one, he has not had a successful attempt before. So, okay, he's just super confident, right? There's a little problem there, though. When it is actually successful and the car disappears, take a look at his face.
He's shocked.
He is absolutely shocked that
But
this
then
thing
immediately
works.
goes into like a eureka jig.
Yeah. Oh, he's jigging? No. He is surprised that this thing worked. A second aspect is he created a remote control to control the car, presumably so that he would not have to be in the car and therefore in harm's way. Why stand in front of it when you don't know exactly if it's going to work or not? I mean, and of course, scientists are famous for their hesitancy about their theories, right? They're all about, we gotta look at the data, we gotta test it before
But
we're sold
Epstein
on
did
it.
do 9/11.
Yeah. Well, I heard it was an inside job, but I guess that.
You have no idea how
Okay.
inside.
In any case.
And then he was putting himself in such harm's way with the Libyans.
Correct. Okay, and that was another piece of evidence that I came up with. So, if for those that don't know what we're referring to, the flux capacitor that Doc Brown has invented to that allows the DeLorean to go back into time is generated through plutonium, because you need a nuclear reaction to get it. So the way that he gets his plutonium, because of course, as he says as one version of himself says, you can't just go into a dime store and buy plutonium, is he makes an arrangement with this Libyan terrorist group to build a bomb for them in exchange for plutonium. He rips them off.
He makes a fake bomb.
He makes a fake bomb to rip them off, and then they come to find him and shoot and kill him in one version of this. So, and I'll get to what I mean by version in a second. But correct. When you say this is like a Death Wish type move, right? Why are you, first off, yes, plutonium's hard to get, but surely he could have found a less dangerous way than tying himself up with Libyan terrorists, number one. Number two, ripping them off. Understandable that he wouldn't have wanted to build them a bomb, but nevertheless, it seems like this just seems like kind of a Death Wish sort of a move, right?
Speaking of, though, they actually wanted to cast Charles Bronson.
You biffed it.
Yeah.
Charles Brosnan?
Yes. I actually thought of that as I was saying Death Wish, thinking back to our previous episode. But in any case, so that was another piece of evidence, was the getting tied up with the Libyans, which seemed extremely dangerous and partially unnecessary. Another theory about this is that even though he has sort of this happy-go-lucky, somewhat optimistic facade, he is a failed inventor. Every invention that he has come up with up until this point has failed. We see in his 1955 counterpart test out a brainwave analyzer, essentially to try and read Marty's mind. It fails, and he's kind of downtrodden about that. And so his failed efforts at inventing play a factor in it. He claims that when he, in 1955, supposedly he got the vision of the flux capacitor when he was hanging up a clock in his bathroom, slipped and hit his head on the toilet. Perhaps he was in fact trying to hang himself?
Head trauma, too.
Yep.
Can affect your mental health.
But the theory is that maybe he was trying to hang himself.
Yeah.
Because, how often do you really see a clock in a bathroom? I mean, on occasion, maybe.
I thought it was a picture. It was a clock?
No, he said he was hanging a clock.
Just a reference to time.
Yeah, right. But, again, if we're going off of this theory, maybe he was trying to hang himself, hit his head.
Or he was pulling a carradine.
Could be. Still hanging himself either way. Or sort of. So, in other words, failed inventor, low self-esteem that he masks through this sort of optimistic demeanor. And then on one of the Reddit sites I went to, someone said, well, wait a minute, though. Like, that all changes because Marty goes back in time and he knows that he has successfully invents the time machine. But this brings us up to the alternate dimensions theory.
Yes.
Which is actually referenced briefly by Doc Brown in Back to the Future Part 2. He has a chalkboard where he references the fact that the previous timeline, they can't go back there and fix that. He doesn't go into it. He doesn't give it names or anything like that, like, a Rick and Morty type of thing, but he does allude to it. So you essentially have three timelines that exist. You have the primary timeline where Marty's family is relatively poor, or
the timeline.
Yep. And Marty's father is a pushover to Biff, who kind of pushes him around. This is called the Twin Pines theory.
Much like Jerry.
Yes. So Twin Pines comes from the name of the mall that they hung out at. The secondary timeline is Marty's parents don't get together because Marty in 1955 has stopped what was going to be their initial beating.
With his charisma.
Yes. Mm-hmm. His mom has fallen in love with her son, so there's like this whole Oedipus thing going on here. He's trying not to sleep with his mom. So another weird idea for a blockbuster movie. The comedian John Mulvaney kind of has a whole bit about this that's pretty funny. But anyway, so that's
John Mulaney.
Yeah, John Mulaney. I said Mulvaney. Yeah, Mulaney. Sorry.
Mulvaney's the Secretary of War for Russia.
Oh, okay, well, I threw a V
Maybe
in
he
there.
has a thing too. Where he entertains his party guests with this whole bit.
He might. I have a tendency to throw in extra letters to names that don't need to be there, but in any case, or drop them. So that was the secondary timeline. Then the tertiary, or third timeline, is the Lone Pine timeline. The mall is now Lone Pine, as we see in another scene, because Marty, when he went back in time, knocked down one of the two pines on the farm.
Ran it down.
Correct. So, it's the primary timeline where Doc is suicidal. In the other timelines, of course, he knows that he's going to successfully invent it. So that answers that problem, is that you have the 3 different timelines.
I don't think we've answered any problems.
Okay, so I think those are kind of that's sort of the main case for the suicidal Doc.
I've seen it before. I think there's substance to that theory.
Now, Christopher Lloyd himself has refuted this theory, but as I will always point out, with my postmodern literary hat on, it doesn't matter what the artist thinks.
He's an unreliable narrator.
He's just an actor.
It's what they put out there and the evidence thereof. So, in any case.
Solid work.
Well, his character on Taxi was really into autoerotic asphyxiation.
All right, Travis, you're up.
All right, so I am without notes.
That's fine.
I'm just flying off the seat of my pants. Is that how you say it?
Flying by the seat of your pants.
I'm flying off.
I don't need you taking your pants off.
Pants off, dance off. That's what you said on the calendar invite.
Damn it. You're right.
So I think that it's only fair that I'm without notes, because a lot of times these not conspiracy theories, but fan theories are birthed of hanging out and talking shit.
Talking shit, drinking beers.
Yes, exactly. So the first one I'm going to go with is my most pedestrian, and I think it's pretty out there, but it's a John Hughes movie. It is called Home Alone. Home Alone from 1990. And in the movie, Kevin McAllister is a 10-year-old boy. In 1990, when I saw this movie, I was a 10-year-old boy, blonde hair, blue eyes. I was a little Kevin McAllister. So, in the film, he's oh my God, they forgot Kevin. He's left alone while his parents are on Christmas vacation. And he is left to his own devices. And by devices, I mean instruments of torture.
Yes.
Obviously, he's not unprovoked. The wet bandits are trying to rob his home and a lot of other places on the same block. They've cased the joint. They think everybody's going to be gone. And Kevin McAllister is there. He's actually home alone. And so he rigs up all of these traps, these booby traps. The bear trap, the hot doorknob, the
blowtorch on the head,
the broken Christmas ornaments that you have to walk through barefoot, John McClane style.
My favorite one was his ad-lib tarantula on the face of Daniel Stern, which led to the greatest scream in cinematic history from Daniel Stern.
And so the working theory amongst Home Alone heads is that he grew up to be the main villain from the Saw franchise, Jigsaw.
Wow.
Now,
I've heard this,
some people point out that, yes, the actor who plays Jigsaw, Tobin, something like that. Anyway, he's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white male of an age that would fit in a chronological timeline. Yep. And he himself is an instrument of torture, using all of these, some might say, ingenious devices that cause misery to those he feels deserve it. So yeah, that's the first one, is that Macaulay Culkin is Jigsaw.
You know, there's a Saw reboot coming up.
Is it a reboot? I thought they just did
a sequel?
The 10th one, Saw 10,
something,
right? Saw X.
Something's coming up, and it's being released the same weekend as the Paw Patrol movie.
Oh, good.
So now the double feature is Saw Patrol.
Saw Patrol.
That would be awesome.
That's not true, though, is it? Is there really a Paw Patrol movie coming out at the same weekend as Saw? Well, then that's fucking awesome. We're going to go watch that, bro.
I like that. I've heard that theory, and I think that it's got, much like Todd's, it's got substance.
Oh, there's something about the furnace in Kevin's basement
Yeah.
that resembles one of
Yeah.
the traps that Saw uses.
Some
And so
inspiration.
his motivation.
I just call him
presumably-
Saw because
yeah.
we're cool like that.
And his motivation presumably would be that he's traumatized from having been left alone multiple times by his
Twice.
parents. Twice.
Well, if you
Which is why he's capturing people, bringing them close to him.
Correct.
in the
Correct.
in the Macaulay Culkin verse, he's been left alone twice.
Right.
But then you've got those other
No,
You
we
know.
don't count those.
other homies alone. That's what fans of Home Alone call themselves. Homies alone.
Homies alone.
Wow.
All right, my first theory comes from Film School Rejects,
Okay.
and it's regarding Dr. Samuel Loomis, portrayed by Donald Pleasance
from the Halloween franchise.
films.
Right.
As we all know, he is the psychiatrist who tried to help Michael Myers as a boy.
Or did he create
Just
Michael
wait a
Myers?
minute. I'm getting there. And so he tried his damnedest to ultimately kill him.
For a second, I forgot we were doing fan theories.
Which
and
it
I was
seems
just
like that would
talking.
completely get you disbarred, right?
All right.
Being
So
you tried to kill your client.
here's the crazy fan theory.
They're patients, and you don't take a bar to be a psychiatrist.
Oh, well, whatever you call it, disbarred, whatever you call it.
In the film Psycho,
Yes.
Janet Leigh's character,
Uh-huh.
killed in the shower scene.
Mm-hmm.
Her boyfriend's character's name was Samuel Loomis.
Nuh-uh.
Ah.
But do you think John Carpenter
And
just
he
really liked Alfred
wait a minute,
Hitchcock?
and he is the guy who caught Norman Bates.
Norman Bates.
At the end of the
Really?
film. So the fan theory is that
Norman
know,
Bates was actually the killer, and his mom wasn't even there.
that he became obsessed with psychiatry, and even went so far as to become a child psychologist because he realized that
Psychologist.
that these problems happen to children and they grow into grown-up psychopaths. And ironically enough, Halloween stars Jamie Lee Curtis, who is the daughter of Janet Leigh.
Yes.
You are right.
But yeah, so in the aftermath of all this, he has all the guilt. He wants to be a catalyst for change.
Yes.
He wants to make sure it never happens again. His response to Myers' escape is extreme, though. He's just his doctor.
Yeah.
But he takes it personally.
Right.
Not only does he want to catch him, but he wants to kill him.
Right.
He pursues him for 5 films.
Yep.
That's not just dedication. That's obsession.
Yep.
That's guilt. That's PTSD.
Yep.
Dr. Samuel Loomis is the same person in both films.
Yep.
That's badass.
I mean, I would
where does
almost,
Malcolm McDowell come into play here?
I would almost be. I'm probably 99% certain that at the minimum, the Samuel Loomis name was intentional from John Carpenter,
Right.
like, picking it out from that movie.
Yeah, I would hope
At a
so,
minimum.
right?
Right.
So that's
If not intentionally, then subconsciously. Like,
Yep.
clearly the man was a horror fan, and
Mm-hmm.
he cut his teeth on some things like that.
Yep. Yep.
Very cool. All right, so
like it.
is that one for each of us?
that's one for each of us.
Is it time to do a beer check-in?
Go for it.
Can we do a... I heard some fans had a theory that this was a good idea for a beer. It's called Spicy Pickle Monster. And do you like pickles?
I love pickles, and
I'm a pickle fan.
I like pickle beers.
Do you like pickles, Todd?
I am not a pickle stan.
You're not a pickle fan. Like,
No.
He's like
sweet, dill, spicy, nothing.
So if I'm getting, say, a chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A, I tell them no pickles. If they accidentally put it on there, it has to go back.
but they brine the chicken.
You
and-
know
and
they
you
use
can't
pickle
just-
juice to brine the chicken.
because the pickle has infiltrated the bread and the chicken, and there's no getting rid of that disgusting flavor. So no, I'm not a fan.
It actually
at all.
smells very mild
Yeah.
in terms of pickles. Like, I drink pickle juice, and this does not smell like.
Do y'all remember, or did you ever try the pickle flavored Gatorade that came out a few years back?
I did not.
No, but I would
I
love
accidentally bought it.
Accidentally.
And by the way, this is by
You thought it was just regular cucumber Gatorade.
I can't remember what. I think I did. Yeah, there was a cucumber one. I can't remember what I thought.
This is by Prairie Artisan Ales.
Yeah, Prairie.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
We like them. You know you want to try it.
Oh, I definitely. Hold on.
I've had pickly-er beers than this one.
I like it.
I like the
I,
spice.
Yeah.
Although I think they really missed the boat on naming it Spicy Prickle Monster because prairie pickle
yeah.
prickle.
It should be noted that the can looks like the Jaws movie poster.
It does.
Yeah. All right, let's motor through unless somebody wants to take a peek.
Round number 2.
All right. Yep. Todd, you're up.
All right. So this next theory was introduced to me through an actual fan theory documentary that came out. That's a really cool documentary, if you've never seen it, about the film The Shining, called Room 237.
I have seen
Yes.
this. This is
And
great.
it's great. So there are multiple theories that are presented in that movie, and the filmmaker just lets each one of them kind of go through the evidence, and they're all kind of compelling in their own way. But the one that I latched onto was the theory that the film is a confession from Stanley Kubrick that he helped fake the footage from the moon landing.
Okay.
Obviously, there's
crazy.
no moon.
Yeah. Now, the guy in room 237 is very careful to say, I'm not saying that we didn't land on the moon. I'm just saying that the footage is faked. And so this is kind of cobbled together evidence from him and also other things that I found. And I became increasingly compelled by what I kept finding. Essentially the grandfather, you kind of have to go back a little bit about the fake moon landing stuff, because it doesn't start with that movie. There was this guy, William Casing, who was an engineer for NASA, who self-published a book in the 70s where he claimed that the whole thing was fake, and he went through all this evidence, that kind of thing. So it kind of begins with that guy. When the Shining was made, Kubrick. Well, going back, actually, you have to go back to 2001, right? Because
The Space Odyssey?
Yeah, A Space Odyssey, because Kubrick filmed some footage in space that would have made him a prime candidate to have been the person to do this, right? All right. So anyway, I'll get into it. So here's some of the evidence. I thought the most compelling piece of evidence that was presented by the guy speaking in room 237 was he showed pictures to go alongside of it, and so you'll have to watch the movie to kind of see these pictures. You might be able to find them online, but he argues that you can see evidence of front projection in the NASA footage. So for those of you who don't know what front projection is, that's a film term. I just jotted down the definition. The effects process in film production, it's an effects process in film production for combining foreground performance with pre-filmed background footage. So in other words, you have your actors in the foreground, and then later on in the editing process, they stick something in the back. Right, project what they want into the background. And he points out evidence of the front projection. There's a little image that he shows first in The Shining when we know front projection used, that he circles on I don't know if he does it, but it gets circled. The director may have done it on the screen. That's this little vague image that you can see, and then he shows the NASA footage, and that exact same image is visible.
Okay.
In a similar spot. So the claim is that this is the evidence of front projection being used, in which case, that would be the evidence that it was fake, that this was
okay.
So I thought that was pretty compelling just because of the visual imagery, and I encourage everyone to seek out that image, because when I saw it in the film, I was like, whoa, that's actually kind of hard to explain. There may be an explanation, but I wasn't interested in finding those. So another part of this theory is the hotel carpet, which has a very distinct orange and maroon color.
It's beautiful.
So there's one scene where Danny is playing on the carpet, and then there's a shot that goes up above, and that shot from up above, if you compare it to the Apollo 11 launch pad, looks eerily similar.
Oh.
So if you compare that shot with the launch pad, very similar. Coincidence? Well, maybe, but then we keep compiling these things here. Other aspects of this has to do with room 237 itself. In Stephen King's novel, the room was 217. So why change it to 237?
Does it have anything to do with the distance between the Earth and the Moon?
Indeed it does. Now, Kubrick actually has said that the hotel that they had requested that they change it to 237 because they were worried that the room 217 would then become a room that customers wouldn't want to stay in, which sounded kind of flimsy. The guy in room 237, the documentary claims that he has called the hotel and they've told him that does not exist, that room number. So why would
237 doesn't exist?
No, 217 doesn't exist. So they wanted him to change it to 237, supposedly, according to Kubrick, in order so that it wouldn't be a real number in the hotel.
But there is a 237, but there's not a 217.
No, there's not a 217 or a 237.
Oh.
But
so it is arbitrary.
So in other words, Kubrick, for some reason, apparently lied about the reason for changing it from 217 to 237. That doesn't seem like it could be arbitrary. And as you noted, the theory is that it was because the Earth, this is from the Earth to the Moon, is
237 miles.
1,000. But yes, close.
Travis isn't good with distances.
But yes, so anyway, that's the theory about that. So that's another piece of evidence. Other stuff has to do with just the narrative itself. So at the beginning of the movie, we see Jack and his wife talking to the hotel manager, and he mentions how the hotel was built on an Indian burial ground.
And they moved the headstones.
Yes.
They didn't move the bodies.
And in the same shot, in the background is like an image of an eagle. So supposedly, the theory goes, this is like the crumbling American empire, and then the fiction writer, Jack Torrance, is there to write the lie, and so therefore he comes to represent Stanley Kubrick in that.
The storyteller.
Wow.
The storyteller.
Okay.
Winter Storm, referencing the Cold War. So, now, why would they need to fake this? Okay, so the theory of that goes, so the moon landing happened in 1969. JFK, who is now lionized because of his assassination, promised that we would get to the moon before the end of the 1960s.
Right.
Or at least before the Russians.
Correct. The Russians, though, a lot of people around this time were surprised that the U.S. got there first because the thought had been that the Russians were ahead of us in the space race. But we were way ahead of them in filmmaking. So the thought was that, okay, so we've got to fake it in order to give the illusion that we have beaten the Russians to the moon. Now, I should note that part of the theory is not what the guy in the documentary was talking about, because he's careful to say, I'm not claiming that, we didn't go to the moon, that kind of thing.
Will you say it like a honeymooner?
To the moon!
To the moon, Alice, bang, zoom. Yeah. Jack's novel, as he's writing it, evidence of the collapsing mind and the need to confess.
Okay.
Jackie
and I got to point out one more. There's a bunch of these, but I won't belabor it. One that's very important, though, is that Danny Torrance, in one scene, before he goes into room 237, stands up, and he is wearing a sweater that has the Apollo 11
that's
on
true.
it.
The Apollo, yeah, it's a beautiful sweater.
And one more. Stephen King in his novel, so there's the infamous scenes in the movie The Shining with those creepy-ass twins that gave me nightmares as a kid. Well, in Stephen King's novel, it was just one daughter. Why twins? Well, it's a reference, apparently, of the Gemini mission. Gemini, which references twins, and the fact that the Gemini mission was faked. Okay.
I should note to the listeners that Todd is wearing a tinfoil hat.
I also wanted to ask you, though, like, during your research, when did you really, really start to feel paranoid?
The images of the front projection were kind of compelling. For the record, I don't actually believe this, but the front projection images are kind of compelling. I'm sure there may be some film expert out there that could give an answer for this. And there was an article actually that I found that I decided to wait to read until after this podcast because I didn't want to ruin my enthusiasm. But it apparently chops apart all the different theories. So I'll read that after the episode at some point.
Didn't Neil Armstrong punch a guy for saying that the moon landing was faked?
If he didn't, he should have.
I think he did.
Another fan theory, the word paranoid is actually rooted in the combination of the Noid being into paranormal research.
Nice.
Paranoid.
I like that. That's good.
I'm actually pulling an audible here. I'm switching my last two because this one I'm kind of going to refute.
Okay.
I'm kind of going to refute this. So Shark Tank style, you can't pick this one.
So you're bombing your own moment in front of the sharks.
Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah. All right, so the theory is that the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Or let's just go back a little bit. The Blair Witch Project itself was kind of in the same realm as fan theory because it was presented as actual found footage before the movie came out. And it did eventually get revealed that it was a work of fiction. And if you watch the movie, the end of the movie, the credits say written and directed by blah, blah, blah. So it's not real. But it still fucking scares me, man. I rewatched it the other day and I got scared.
So which of the fan theories? Because there are two that I know of.
So the predominant theory is that Mike and Dave, who need wedding dates, are actually the murderers of Heather on this expedition for a documentary, supposedly to capture images of the Blair Witch. Now, there is some evidence to support this. One is that Heather never knew Mike prior to this trip. She had never met him. Two is that even though Josh was her ex-boyfriend, but they are now supposedly amicably friends, he's very verbally abusive and emotionally abusive to her. Not only in the film, but on the website of the Blair Witch, prior to the film being released, there was a diary from Heather, and it mentions how he was just basically constantly a dick to her.
Wasn't Josh the one that recruited Mike?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's another.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that these sounds that they hear could have been engineered by Mike, who's an audio engineer, and that maybe it was a plot. The whole thing was set up to kill her. So, having rewatched this movie, I think that there's something to that, but not exactly that. I don't think there was a plot to kill Heather.
Okay.
If you're assuming that Mike and Josh actually killed Heather, I think it happened as a result of what they were going through along the trip. I think that they only needed a reason to kill her. And the fact that her confidence in herself and her compass skills and map reading skills, her skills of navigation, basically got them stranded in the middle of nowhere. And they all kind of went a little bit crazy. They're malnourished, they're dehydrated, they're feeling the effects of exposure, plus there's this extra point of heightened tension because they're supposed to be there to witness something quote-unquote evil, you know? So my theory is that no, they weren't initially planning on killing Heather, but they got out there and they both got so pissed off at her that they murdered her and did a very, very elaborate documentary style found footage cover-up, if you will. Yeah.
Clever.
Now, there's problems with that theory, too, because would they have the time to, in between getting pissed off and murdering her, come up with this whole scheme about we're gonna record sounds in the woods and we're gonna make all these little trinkets and leave them, and we actually know where this old abandoned house is in the middle of the woods. That's where we'll kill her, even though we're actually lost, which is why we're mad in the first place. So it's pretty fucking complex, and most people wouldn't even get it.
All right, so here's my theory. And this one's a long one, so you're going to have to bear with me. It is by far the most far-fetched that I've come across in my research, but I believe it. The theory is, and this comes from a YouTube channel called Rhino Stew. Rhino Stew, S-T-E-W.
I mean, I wouldn't turn it down. I'd try it.
The film Snowpiercer is a sequel to the movie Willy Wonka.
Whoa.
I stumbled across this one, but I didn't delve too far into it. So.
There's some other Willy Wonka ones out there, too.
Yeah, Willy Wonka themes show up in a lot of films.
Yeah.
When I heard this one, I was like, that's ridiculous. But now that I thought about it and I've seen this guy's evidence...
And I just saw Snowpiercer a couple months ago for the first time, so this is good.
So
Break it down for us.
both films feature a group of people who work their way through a large, fantastic structure, and one by one, a person is removed. In each room, until the very end, one person discovers the entire thing was a test because a wealthy industrialist needs a successor.
Okay. I'm following you so far.
Ed Harris essentially is the adult version of Charlie Bucket. All right, some things to think about. There's some themes in here. Economic class structures.
Yeah.
Both feature children. Both center around food. The themes of sacrifice, choice, free will play out in both movies. And so you have the evidence. You have state-of-the-art food production in both films.
Right.
You have experimental transportation in both films. Snowpiercer itself, Willy Wonka, you've got the crazy, elaborate contraptions that they're riding on.
Sure.
Both are sealed systems. You have the sealed factory. They're self-contained. They're self-sustaining. Snowpiercer is described in the film as a closed ecosystem. In Willy Wonka, they say nobody goes in, nobody comes out.
Right.
So suppose that Charlie forsakes his name and assumes the Wonka identity. Willy, a.k.a. Wilfred Wonka.
Wait, is his character's name Wilfred?
Yes.
Okay.
In Snowpiercer.
And is he a dog?
No. In Willy Wonka, the W is ever present, branding Willy Wonka. In Snowpiercer, the W is everywhere.
Okay.
It also,
film.
it makes sense to make that connection because the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is set during the Industrial Revolution in England.
Right.
And then you've got the results of all this over-industrialization.
True. Population must be contained to keep Snowpiercer self-sustaining at 74%. They need to maintain proper balance of anxiety and fear, chaos and horror.
Okay.
They even borrowed Wonka's method of hiding messages in food and using spies throughout the film. There's
This
even
is pretty good, man.
There's even
I'm buying this.
Yeah, there's even the theory. What's the dude that was one of the Doctor Who's with the glasses?
David Tennant.
No, the old man. The old man Gilliam is his character's name. So the theory is that he's the guy that was playing Slugworth in the first film, just aged up, essentially occupying the exact same role in both films. And so the question, of course, is what about the Oompa Loompas? The Oompa Loompas
I was
going to
ask that.
Okay, well, the Oompa Loompas just went extinct because they were all male. They could not reproduce.
Well, maybe they just don't show the girl Oompa Loompas.
But Snowpiercer is still operated by tiny people, children. The entire structure
They're
is
the
dependent
Oompa
on
Loompas.
small people. So you have a continuation of this crazy notion that it's got to be small things operating the machine.
They can fit in those little spaces.
And then, of course, at the end of the film, it all centers around selfless sacrifice.
Right.
And so, yeah, you've got a
It
continuation
really
of the Wonka themes, and
Yeah.
and then when you just kind of like say, well, what if this, then this, and this? Yeah, Charlie Bucket is Wilfred.
Well, and I saw, so when I ran across this again, I didn't read it in depth, but I remember that in the one that I saw, they were showing like juxtapositions of pictures of different ones that they were claiming were similar characters. Did you run across anything?
I didn't run
like
across any of
Okay.
that. No,
Wait, who's
I'm
Veruca
sorry.
Salt?
I'm sorry, he did do that. He said skip it if you're not interested, and I really wasn't interested in that.
okay.
But yeah, he did do that.
Is Tilda Swinton Veruca Salt?
I think that's what it was.
Boom! Nailed it again.
Well, there was no, but yeah, there was images though of the doppelganger type thing going on there.
And Travis, to your point about Willy Wonka, though,
Yes.
Willy Wonka has popped up in a lot of comparisons to other films. The Menu being the most recent one, where I went like apeshit crazy saying, "It's Willy Wonka, it's Willy Wonka," down to the one where she goes into his office and to confront Ralph Fiennes, and it's an inverse of Willy Wonka's office. You still have the ever-present ticking of the clock and the clicking of the typewriter.
If people haven't seen The Menu, check
the
that
Menu's
shit
so
out.
good. So yeah, I thought that one was a lot of fun.
I thought it was Fiennes.
Yeah, that was fine. All right, so we're on to round 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's let Travis go, because I think you and I, Todd, are going to do another John Hughes thing.
Okay.
All right, so that's cool. This is the one that I actually think is the most convincing. We're going to have to transport ourselves to the realm of a dystopian future.
We're not in one now?
The Thunderdome world, the Mad Max world, the Mad Maxiverse,
Okay.
if you will.
The Maxiverse.
The Road Warrior verse. So it's all about Mad Max, and so obviously we started out with the movie Mad Max that came out in the 1970s.
Road Warrior.
And the sequel, Mad Max 2, was known as Road Warrior in the United States. And then you have Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, which all starred Mel Gibson. Then we have a lull in the Mad Maxiverse for quite some time in our timeline. Many, many years go by before another Mad Max movie comes out. And then the original director, George Miller, right? George Miller gets his shit together and makes a new, very, very good Mad Max movie starring a very versatile actor, Tom Hardy, as Max Rockatansky. Rockatansky, I believe is what his name is. But it's given as free information to the audience that this takes place 40 years after, like, the apocalypse or whatever, the end of the world. And the timeline doesn't make sense for Tom Hardy's version of Max to be the same person as Mel Gibson's. Not even talking about their ages as humans, talking about the timeline between when the world ended, when Mad Max happens, and then how far we are into the future after that when Fury Road happens. And so the theory is that Tom Hardy's character, much like a Willy Wonka passing of the baton, is not actually Mel Gibson's version, but the feral child from Mad Max 2, a.k.a. the Road Warrior. And I think that there's a lot of credence that could be paid to that theory. I think that it's pretty solid. What do you guys think?
I buy into it.
Yeah.
The feral child didn't say much.
Right.
Neither did this version of Max.
Correct.
He was a silent hero in this film. He didn't... It was... Clearly, it was Furiosa's movie.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a Morton Joe's movie, if I'm being honest.
They both have really good tans.
I don't think Todd's ever seen my Morton Joe cosplay.
Oh, yeah. It was amazeballs.
But that's my take. I'm buying this one. I'm buying this theory 100%.
Yeah, that's why I saved it for third.
Okay.
Todd, you got any input on that? Do you think does it hold water?
Oh no, I think it holds water.
Of my 3 theories, which one do you think is the most
I
likely?
think that's probably, especially since you pretty much refuted your own second theory. So.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't supposed to buy that one.
You tanked in the Shark Tank.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm totally buying
Tank
that one.
Commander.
The timeline argument, I think, sells it for me.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in and give you my John Hughes theory. And that is from, I've seen it in a couple of places. I'm going to credit cracked.com because that's going to be the one that you're going to be able to find.
Cracked.com.
You'll be able to find it there first, but it's shot in other places. The idea is that the movie Breakfast Club, where you've got the diverse group of white people occupying several social castes, spend a Saturday in detention.
One of them's a ginger.
The theory is that it's all in Allison's head. Ali Sheedy's character, who is termed in the film Basket Case.
Right.
The entire thing is all in her mind. If you go to the beginning of the film, the last person to enter the room is Allison. Everyone else is already there. And they occupy these staggeringly stereotypical archetypes.
Right.
And they even say it in the film. The jock, the dweeb.
Yep.
What did they say Molly Ringwald was? The princess?
Or something like that.
And then you've got the drug head. Yeah, and then you think about some of the other things that happen in the film. You know,
you've also got the Principal Skinner.
I'll get there in a second. You have them hotboxing in the library, producing copious amounts of weed smoke. That would travel through the ventilation.
I wouldn't know
if they're being supervised.
Sure.
Judd breaks the ceiling. They have a dance party when they're supposed to be being quiet. Then Emilio Estevez breaks glass with his scream.
Yep. When the principal has established himself as a hard ass who's going to be, keeping his eye on him.
So nobody heard this. And then, of course, the idea is that you have a teacher / principal who agreed to be at detention on a Saturday.
And he's the only one there. And he's not even really watching them.
Except for the janitor.
Right.
So the idea is that this was all a fantasy concocted in her head to have friends, to fit in, because you have this magical reconciliation at the end of the film. She has the moment where she becomes beautiful in the end.
And gets the jock.
So the entire movie is nothing but a fantasy fabricated by a very fragile mind.
That makes a lot of sense.
In her own fantasy, why would she have dandruff?
That's a little bit of reality bleeding through.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that it's a short one, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one.
I can dig it. But what about Principal Skinner?
It's not Principal Skinner.
Yes.
But if you mess with the bull,
you get the horns.
Yeah. All right,
Todd.
So this next one that I'm doing is actually a fairly well-known fan theory. If you Google that movie fan theories, this will inevitably pop up in almost every article. So it has to do with the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off from 1986. And so this film, just briefly, has to do with this character Ferris Bueller, who is a charmer who everybody loves. He fakes being sick to have a cut day, essentially, with his girlfriend Sloane and his best friend Cameron. The principal, knows that, is on to Ferris and is trying to catch him in the act, essentially. So that's the bare bones of what the plot is. Now, the theory behind this movie is what is known as the Tyler Durden theory. So we have to go back to what does Tyler Durden refer to, of course, Fight Club, in which the protagonist of the film. Yeah, there's going to be lots of spoilers coming up, so if you haven't seen those movies. So the protagonist, played by Edward Norton, as we find out later in the movie, he has this friend, Tyler Durden, who he meets. It turns out, long story short, that Tyler Durden is essentially an alter ego that he has manifested to act in ways that he, as himself, is not capable of acting.
According to fan theories.
Right. So, applying that theory, so some people have applied this to Ferris Bueller, and the idea is that Cameron, who is the Edward Norton character version in Ferris Bueller, he's this basket case, he doesn't stand up for himself to his dad, etc., afraid to take chances, that kind of thing, that he's the doppelganger of the Edward Norton character, and then Ferris Bueller is actually not real, he's like the Brad Pitt / Tyler Durden, the alter ego of Cam and what he wants to be. And so the film essentially acts as a fantasy almost of Cameron, who is real, being the version of himself that he wishes that he could be.
Okay.
So, this is a pretty popular theory. It's been mentioned in other TV shows, films, things like that.
I like to think of it more of as like Calvin and Hobbes
I think
relationship.
Yeah. The Calvin and Hobbes thing came in at some point, but I can't remember how. Anyway.
So which one is the id and which one is the ego?
I don't remember my Freud. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. So, as I started rewatching Ferris Bueller for this podcast with that theory in mind, within 5 minutes I was like, no, this doesn't work. And so I was close to abandoning it, or texting Shawn and saying, hey, can I just cross-examine this thing instead of arguing for it? But then I had a revelation. So, the Tyler Durden theory is on the right track and is almost right, but there are a couple of problems. So we have to go back to Fight Club and talk about Fight Club in order to understand this. So
First rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
Correct. But we're going to have to here. So the name Tyler Durden is so one of the clever plot elements of Fight Club that leads you, if you've never seen the movie, to kind of falling for this idea that they're doppelgangers or missing it, is the fact that the name Tyler Durden is repeated by many other characters in the film. So you know Tyler Durden exists, and you assume that it's Brad Pitt. But one thing that's easy not to notice as the movie's progressing is that we never get a name for Edward Norton's character. And of course, as we learn by the end of the film, the reason for that is because Edward Norton's character is in fact Tyler Durden. And so it's both. With the Ferris Bueller theory, the problem is they apply one part to it, which is they're doing the neat thing where it's, okay, Edward Norton's character is Cam, because they're both basket cases, essentially, and then Tyler Durden and Ferris are the alter egos. In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all of the characters, at some point or other, mention Ferris Bueller. There are scenes that Ferris Bueller are not in, where Ferris Bueller's name is mentioned.
They spray painted on the water tower, save Ferris.
Yes. We know from the evidence that the movie gives us that Ferris Bueller exists. Well, but Cameron, only 2 characters in the entire movie mention Cameron's name or even acknowledge his existence.
And one of them is Ben Stein, who we know is a crackpot nutcase with crazy
Sloan.
ideas.
And Sloan.
Oh, you know
says
what? I
his
kind of
name.
forgot about, because he does say Mr. whatever.
Fry.
Right? Okay.
Fry.
Well,
and
that
Sloan,
throws a little complication.
Sloan calls him by name too.
Yeah. Well, that's why those were the 2 I was thinking of. Ferris and Sloan are the 2 you've already kind of poked a little bit of a hole in.
Sorry.
But
I told
anyway.
you, Ben Stein's crazy, though, so ignore him.
I wasn't thinking about the
Mia
last names,
Sarah.
I guess. But anyway.
Sarah.
So,
She's one of my
I'm
girls.
I'm going to plow along anyway, though. So, I still think this theory, though, holds up better. So, Cameron is hardly mentioned at all. No one acknowledges his existence. So, so what it is it's not that Cam's real and then Ferris is the version of himself that he wishes he could be. It's actually almost the opposite. Ferris Bueller is trying to create this facade of this perfect guy who everybody loves and has this perfect relationship with his parents, and Cam is the alter ego who is his insecure self trying to pipe in. And so that's why you see Ferris try to charm, even manipulate at times, kind of as an asshole to Cam a lot of the time. He's being an asshole to that part of himself that he wishes to quiet down. Now, let me continue. I'm going to have to continue a little bit further, I think, to convince on this. So, first off, I think we all know in general, when we're all like Ferris's sister when we're in high school, right? Where we get annoyed with the perfect person. They get away with everything.
I don't know what you're talking about.
As we get older, though, we know, though, that usually someone who projects a perfect facade, we know that's not real.
Yeah.
We almost feel sorry for them, in fact.
Don't skip leg day, bro.
Exactly. This character of Ferris, where he's perfect, everybody loves him, his parents love him, he can't do no wrong. It's a facade. Okay? What's some evidence that I can use to support this? So it does look on the surface that he does, in fact, have a great relationship to his parents. I would contend that Cam railing against his own father is Ferris railing against the dad that we see in the film. My evidence for this is that, we see them being kind of, he calls them champ, they're being nice to each other, but we also see a scene where And the scene where they're at a restaurant, Ferris and his two friends. Mm-hmm. His dad happens to be there, Ferris's dad. So they're trying to avoid being seen, and there's this whole scene where their dad's going to get into a cab. He gets distracted. They hop into a cab that was intended for them and roll off.
There's a scene where he's trying to avoid being seen.
Yes, by his dad. But there's one thing about that scene, though, that I think is notable for my theory, which is that his dad's being kind of a jerk and an asshole to his colleagues that he's talking to.
Because he's an ad man and we're all assholes.
Yes.
Would you call him a madman?
Probably. And by the way, he was taking Abe Froman to lunch.
Yes.
The sausage king of Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So anyway, but this nice guy routine that Ferris's dad is pulling maybe isn't so true. Maybe he's kind of an asshole under the surface. Maybe he's a little bit demanding of Ferris that we see. We get a little bit of a scene there. Another scene with the dad at the end is when Ferris is trying to beat him home, and Ferris's dad keeps getting slowed down in traffic.
The old lady.
Yeah. And he's kind of cursing, getting angry, not just with the little old lady, but with other things that happen in there too. And so we're seeing this other side of Ferris's dad that I think could suggest potentially that he might be a little bit more of a hard ass than what the facade that we see is. Another thing about Cam's house, quote unquote, and where the cars are stored. So this is set in a suburb of a city.
Yep.
Cameron's house in this and the carport where the luxury cars are kept.
It's not a wooded
Cam's
lot.
dad. No, it looks like a woods. It looks like, now they're supposed to be in a suburb. Why are we all of a sudden in like this wooded area? My theory is that this is actually Ferris's father's little man cave type area that he goes to get away from, Ferris and the gang. Why else would someone that lives in a city be in the woods all of a sudden? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's interesting you should say that, because we really, other than Cameron's bedroom, we don't see anything else of that house.
Yeah, we see the outside of it, and it does not look like the house of someone who would own luxury cars, which would lend itself to the idea that it's not a primary residence, that it may be a lake house type thing, or perhaps a lake house type thing, whatever.
Smash pad.
Yeah, man cave, whatever you want to call it. That's so. My theory is that this
Chode abode.
Yeah. Okay, so my theory anyway is that when we see Cam / Ferris in this wooded area with the cars, that's actually Ferris's dad's area that he's not supposed to be in, and he's not supposed to be touching the cars and all
off
and
limits,
this kind of stuff. Off limits.
Love it.
Correct.
All right, so that's your theory.
Yes,
I think that you've refined the Fight Club theory.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I think you've definitely added credence.
I mean, you kind of did the same thing I did with Blair Witch.
I think so.
You kind of argued against the theory.
All right.
I did, but I refined it.
All right,
Your Honor.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up. Do we want to declare a winner, or do we all win today, or do we all lose today?
I think just the fact that we're even here talking about this for this length of time means we're all losers.
We're all losers. All right, I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire before we call it a day.
Okay, are these ones that we didn't talk about?
No. No comments necessary. These are just some that I saw that, Darth Jar Jar. The whole idea that Jar Jar was a Sith Lord.
I thought you said no comments.
Sandy died on the beach in Greece.
All right, no, she dies at the beginning of the movie. I've got some too. Go ahead.
Tremors and Footloose take place in the same town.
The reason that they
Kevin
didn't want
Bacon,
them to dance was because of the vibrations.
They didn't want them to vibrate the
All right,
the
I got one. Jack is a time traveler in Titanic.
Yes.
He's going back to keep Kate Winslet from killing herself, thus not allowing the Titanic to sink and correcting the timeline.
Because there's a lot of continuity errors that are in the screenplay.
I think you both heard this one before. Garland from Con Air, the serial killer, is Donnie in Big Lebowski.
Oh, no.
I have not heard that one.
Yeah, he gets away at the end of Con Air in Vegas.
Too.
He starts killing guys in bowling leagues. When he basically kills out all the pool, he moves to Los Angeles and finds the two most egotistical guys who will never ask questions about him to hang out with. Every time we see Donnie bowling, he's wearing someone else's bowling shirt with a different name on it.
Wow. Okay.
Boom.
All right, I got one. The Joker is an Iraq War veteran. And
Which
we're talking
Joker?
about
Heath Ledger's?
Ledger's
Yeah,
Joker,
okay,
yes.
I'll buy that. Back to the Future and the Goonies take place on the same day. This isn't a fan theory; it's just fact. October 26, 1985. The Goonies, we know, happened on a Saturday, but then we see that there is there's like a newspaper that basically is into that month. So if you look back, it has to happen on that day.
Which movie came out first, though?
They both came out in 80. Well, I guess in advance of 85. And the Fratelli's article was on October 24th, saying that they had escaped from prison. So both of those happened on the same day.
Okay.
Another theory: James Bond is actually just a code name.
Here's the other one. The Sean Connery's character in The Rock is James Bond, who got arrested and imprisoned.
I saw that one. Yeah.
So that's another one that's out there. So there's tons and tons of fan theories that are a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah.
And
Like how Epstein did 9/11.
Epstein did do 9/11 by himself. Thank you all for joining us. I'm glad that you checked out our crazy fan theories. We did not create these, although I think some of us modified them, embellished. Yeah. If you have any of your own, please contact us on all the social medias at Cinema Chop Shop. You can also listen to a video of this on YouTube at Cinema Chop Shop Podcast. And we've got some fun stuff coming up in the near future. We've got
time for plugs.
Well, I will get there. We've got 2 watch parties on the horizon. And I cannot wait to get to those 2. We've also got some fun episode ideas coming up as well. Plugs, Travis.
I want to plug the Vibes food truck that is today located, as of this recording, at the Eats on the Creek Food Truck Park here in Florence, South Carolina. And it's a Caribbean, Jamaican style food truck. I had braised oxtail. Oh my God. It was so good. But like I was telling you earlier, it's kind of like when you give a dog one of those slow feeder bowls and he has to like figure it out. Because that's how it is eating oxtail, because the bones are
intricate.
It's intricate. Very good. Yes. And we brought Max, the good boy. Plug out to Max.
He listens. Todd, you got any plugs there?
Well, I always try to plug movies that I liked. I kind of went down a rabbit hole of Italian Polizia films from the 70s that were highly influential for...
Does that mean police?
Yes.
Okay. It does. For Quentin Tarantino, particularly a director named Fernando De Leo. They had a collection of his curated collection of his movies on the Criterion Channel that's actually gone away now. And so I just watched all 5 of those, and they are awesome, incredible, amazing chase scenes. You can see the influence on Tarantino. Lots of fun. I've watched a few other of that genre since then. It was a genre that I had not really explored that much, so I'm having fun kind of delving into that.
Hell yeah! I got another one.
Go.
Can I have another plug?
Go.
I am quitting Twitter.
Okay.
I actually quit Twitter. I deactivated my Twitter account.
Right, because you're on X now.
My X account. I deleted my X's account on Twitter. No, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And it's redundant and not worth the annoyance.
The app itself is getting so buggy and ridiculous. It's the worst app about refreshing and keeping stuff. And for some reason, I only get alerts from ABC News now. I don't know why.
That's weird. So henceforth, all of my movie marathon check-ins will be on Facebook and, of course, on Letterboxd, where you can find me as Tron329.
Nice. All right, that's going to do it for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with something. We're not sure yet what it's going to be, but stick around, check it out, and be good to yourselves, love your neighbor, and
each other,
and
as
each
Jerry
other.
Springer would say.
Love yourself.
Call your parents, tell them you love them too. Why not? And please,
my dad called me and he told me he's very worried about China.
Oh well, every time you call your parents, you're going to get something.
He called me.
Yeah, and they call you to give you more baggage. All right, that's it.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Wrong song. So until next time, please remember to watch, chop, retrofit. Thanks for joining us, Travis.